Now let us begin with the Newton's law of gravitation. Let us suppose that we have two objects bearing masses m1 and m2 and they are separated by distance r between them. Now the force of attraction between these two objects is directly proportional to product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. The constant of proportionality can be introduced as capital G, which is known as the gravitational constant. The numerical value in SI system for this constant of proportionality is 6.67 into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. This law has a similar form to the Coulomb's law of attraction or repulsion. In case of gravitation, we have only attractive force and the nature is governed by the inverse square law. Here in gravitation, the characteristic is mass, and in Coulomb's law, in electric forces, the nature is due to the charges. One of the most important thing I would like to mention that the gravitational force between extended bodies is found by adding, mathematically integrating the individual forces on particles within the bodies. However, if either of the bodies is a uniform spherical shell or a spherically symmetric solid, the net force it exerts on the external object may be computed as if all mass of the shell or the body were located at its center. So the first sentence implying that we have to explore the principle of superposition for considering effect due to individual particles. Another thing is that you can represent the entire mass by a point mass concentrated at its center. So here we have such two objects and we are interested in finding the force. So you can consider this whole mass to be concentrated at one point, and then you have to work out the distance between the centers of the two objects. As F is equal to G m1 m2 r bar upon r cube is the vector representation, to compensate one r bar in the numerator, we have used r cube so that we can account for the direction. The dimensions of the force is mlt minus 2. Force is basically mass into acceleration. For mass it is m1 and for acceleration it is L1t minus 2 meter per second square. The dimensions of displacement is L. We are using basic dimensions mlt. Let x is the dimension of G. The dimensions of G are unknown to us, and then we can plug in force m1 L1t minus 2. X we want to find, that is dimensions of G. m1 into m2 will be m square r L r cube L cube. By simplifying, for x we can obtain the dimensions of gravitational constant G as m minus 1 L 3 t minus 2. In the past, people obviously knew that they were being pulled downward, but they figured that the downward force was unique to Earth and unrelated to the apparent moment of astronomical bodies across the sky. But in 1665, the 23-year-old Isaac Newton recognized this force is responsible for holding the moon in its orbit. Indeed, he showed that every body in the universe attracts every other body. This tendency of the bodies to move towards one another is called gravitation, and the stuff that is involved is mass of each body. If the myth were true that a falling apple inspired Newton to his law of gravitation, then the attraction is between the mass of the apple and mass of the earth. It is appreciable because mass of earth is so large. But even then, it is only about 0.8 Newton. The attraction between two people standing near each other in a bus is much less, that is 1 millinewton, and is impracticable. The gravitational attraction between exerted bodies, such as two people, can be difficult to calculate. Here we shall focus Newton's force between two particles which have no size, as we have argued in the beginning. Let the masses be m1 and m2 and r is their separation distance. The magnitude of the gravitational force acting on each other due to the presence of other is given by F is equal to G times m1 m2 upon r square. G is 6.67, as I said, into 10 power minus 11 Newton meter square per kg, or if you get down to the basic units, it is meter cube per kg second square. Now we shall get into the vector form of Newton's law of gravitation. We know the magnitude of force is G m1 m2 upon r square, where m1 is the mass of the object which is located at position 1 and m2 is the mass of the object located at position 2. R is the distance separating the two objects. Force on 1 is directed by this arrow, and F bar we can write as G m1 m2 upon r square into r cap. R cap is a unit vector that starts from 1 and is directed towards particle 2. So here we draw a vector with tel at the center of particle 1 and it is directed towards particle 2, where r is the distance between two particles. Now if we want to write equation in terms of unit vector, as we have already done here, I need to show a unit vector r cap, and the magnitude of this unit vector is obviously unity, and the magnitude is G m1 m2 upon r square. Now here in this diagram, an apple is shown up which is experiencing downward force, which you can calculate to be 0.8 Newton, and similar is the force but in opposite direction experienced by earth. Earth being huge, the pull is feeble, whereas apple being a minor object, it experiences downward pull. Gravitation and the principle of superposition. Meanwhile, I have given a passing reference to the superposition principle, but now we are going to get into the superposition principle, which is very obvious. Let us suppose that we are having two objects bearing gravitational pull, and F bar equal to G times m1 m2 upon r square times r cap represents the vector force pertaining to that. Now we are interested in finding force on particle 1 because of number of particles. Let us suppose that we have system of particles, say particle 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on up to n. Then force on 1 will be force on 1 because of 2, force on 1 because of 3, force on 1 because of nth particle. So here force on 1 net is vector sum of the force because of rest of the particles. Mathematically, we can use summation notation to make a compact representation of the same equation, wherein we roll suffix I from 2 to n. Here conveniently we have ignored I equal to 1 because force on 1 because of 1 is of no concern. And if you get into that mathematically, the distance between a particle and itself becomes 0, and that 0 comes into denominator, which makes our equation meaningless. Therefore, while writing summation form, we are ruling the variable, the suffix I, ruling from all particles except the one on which you are calculating the force. In a more generalized way of representation, we can write force on ith particle because of jth particle, and J is rolling for all values except, so we can write summation eliminating force on a particle because of itself. The gravitational acceleration Eg, which normally we are writing as G bar of a particle of mass m, is solely due to the gravitational force acting upon it. When a particle is at distance r from center of a uniform spherical body of mass capital M, then the magnitude of force on the particle can be given by Gmm upon r square, and the vector form F bar as appearing on the screen is equal to G times small m capital M upon r square into unit vector. This unit vector, one has to meaningfully consider that it is starting from the object on which you are finding the force. Here you can refer to this diagram. So force on the first is indicated by this F bar, and force on the second can be indicated by this vector. So the force is equal and opposite. Thus F bar is equal to minus G mm upon r square AR cap. Now here AR cap is a direction which is radially outward, which you can consider to be the direction in spherical coordinate system. The direction is perpendicular to any surface r equal to constant. R equal to constant in spherical coordinates is a sphere, and AR bar represents, AR cap represents direction perpendicular to the surface r equal to constant, and it is directed outward, and gravitational force being directed towards center, we have introduced a minus sign. So actually direction is represented by minus AR cap, whereas the magnitude of the force is the same Gmm upon r square. Now let us explore Newton's second law. Force is equal to rate of change of momentum, and considering mass to be constant, force is equal to mass into acceleration, and this time the acceleration is due to gravity. So here I am taking liberty to write F bar is equal to mag r bar cap. Now r bar cap is a vector which is pointing in a particular direction, and AR cap is a unit vector in spherical coordinates. R cap is a unit vector as we have decided in earlier one of the diagrams. Now weight is mass into acceleration due to gravity. So this is a scalar form of the equation, and we have now two equations to compare, which are force in fact, one by Newton's law of gravitation and one by Newton's second law of motion. So Gmm upon r square is equal to mag, that is acceleration due to gravity. Eliminating small m on both sides, we have Ag equal to Gm upon r square. So acceleration due to gravity is characteristic feature of the gravitating object, say Earth, having mass m, and it depends by inverse square on the distance of separation. Now acceleration due to gravity, normally we consider 9.8 meter per second square for any place on Earth's surface. However, the value of G measured at different locations differ. So at altitude 0, that is mean Earth's surface, the value of acceleration due to gravity is 9.83. On the highest point of Mount Everest, that is the altitude 8.8 kilometers, the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8, and the communication satellite, which is at 35,700, you can approximately consider 36,000 kilometers, it is 0.225 meter per second square. We are going to consider the Earth's mass capital M, and mathematically we are going to presume that the density of Earth is uniformly distributed. However, practically it is not uniformly distributed. Here a graph on the screen shows how density is decreasing from inner core to the surface. So in the inner core, the density is highest. On y-axis we have density 1000 kg per cubic meter, and at the inner core it is 14,000, the outer core is about 10 to 12,000 kg per cubic meter, and the mantle is 5 to 3 kg per cubic meter, and on the surface it is minimum. This makes the entire discussion very complicated, but in this undergraduate course we are going to consider that the density is uniform throughout, even though it is not, and make our mathematical equations as simple as possible, which is a design curriculum for undergraduate program. Newton's shell theorem can also be applied to a situation in which particle is located inside uniform shell to show we have a capsule of mass small m, and it can enter into the Earth's crust from North Pole and get down up to the South Pole from inside, passing through the center. And here we are going to calculate the gravity, presuming that the mass distribution inside is uniform. A uniform shell of matter exerts no gravitational force on the particle located inside. For example, the capsule is located at this position, which is at distance r from the center. Now, the spherical shell formed by radius of imaginary sphere of radius small r and the radius of Earth. This spherical shell will not contribute any net force because the balanced force amounts to 0. The contribution will be only the inside mass. The meaning is that the mass inside this dotted sphere. As I have already said, this is a pictorial representation of what I said regarding the density, and we are going to overpass, we are going to ignore the variation in density. However, we are going to consider the density to be constant throughout. Moreover, I want to mention that Earth is not a sphere. Earth is approximately ellipsoidal, flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. Its equatorial radius, that is, from its center point out to the equator, is greater than its pole radius, that is, from its center point out to either North Pole or South Pole by 21 kilometers. Thus, a point at the poles is closer to the dense core of Earth than a point at the equator. This is one of the reasons the free fall acceleration g increases if you were to measure it while moving at sea level from equator towards North or South Pole.